Today is March 9th, 2023, and go ahead and introduce yourself.
By which name?
Well, start at the beginning.
Okay, my name is Mary Lou Butler.
And when were you born, Mary Lou?
I was born the 4th of November of 1932
And where were you born?
in Myrtle Point, Oregon, at my Aunt Mary's house upstairs.
And is that house there now, or is it gone?
No, they finally tore it down a few years ago.
Who was there when you were born? Was your mom there or your dad? Or?
My aunt and uncle, my Aunt Mary, my dad's aunt, be my dad's aunt.
Mm-hmm.
And my uncle Reuben.
Was your dad there?
No, he was working up at Illahee, up in the mountains.
Who was he working for then? Was it the CCC boys?
No, he hadn't gone to work for them yet. It was, I think, for his sister and her husband. They had a place up there, and it turned out to be Snyder's Lodge, but I don't know if it was a lodge at that time or not, or if they turned it into that probably later. I just don't know what he was doing.
What was he doing for him? What kind of work did he do? Carpentry or
no
land clearing?
You know, I just don't know what he did up there.
Mm-hmm. And what did he do later? What did he do for a profession when he was young?
Well, he was a farmer all his life, till he married my mother, and then I think he worked in the woods for a while there.
How come he quit farming?
Well, my grandmother, my dad's mother, died when I was 3 months old. She'd had a heart condition, heart failure. And so my grandfather, well, they had this ranch about a mile from Myrtle Point.
Do you remember the address of that ranch?
Well,
what street it was on? What road?
Well, it was on
That's where the Ratcliffe Cemetery is, though, right?
Yes.
Okay, so it's in the same general area.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just about a mile from town.
Right.
And so Daddy worked on that ranch for years, and then his sister and her husband and family moved on the ranch, I think about the time my folks were, well, maybe before they got married.
That was your dad's sister?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. And so did you keep in touch with their family much, your dad's family?
Somewhat.
After he was dead?
Well, before,
mm-hmm.
We were always real close to Aunt Mary and Uncle Reuben. They, at the time I was little and Dorothy was born, we lived not too far from them.
In Myrtle Point?
And within walking distance of them.
And how did your parents meet? Oh, wait, we better show a picture of your dad first. Do you have a picture just of your dad?
No, there's Daddy there.
Oh, so this is one of the photos here of your dad. And do you know anything about this photo?
No.
Just a hand-me-down. And then this is one when he was older?
Yes. I was married then and living in Springfield.
And how old was your dad when he died?
He was 56.
And how did he die?
He was, a train hit his car as it was crossing the railroad tracks at Cresswell, Oregon.
And he was how old? 56?
56.
Yeah. So how did him and your mom meet?
Well, Daddy was still living on the ranch, and my other grandparents, Grandma Minnie and Grandpa Pee Wee Kopinski, he had a sister and her husband came out. I don't know if they planned on living when they came out or not, but anyway, they came out from Indiana.
Who was that?
Grandpa Kopinski's sister and her husband.
Okay.
And they went to work for my grandparents out on that ranch, and Daddy was still living there, and so they introduced them to my mother then, who was still living at home.
And did Grandma Alice, where did she go to school at? in Myrtle Point?
In Myrtle Point.
Did she graduate from?
No, she went. I think she went to the. She was a sophomore when she quit school.
And got married.
No, she just went to school.
And how old was she when they got married?
I think she was 22. She was born in 1908, and they got married in 1930.
Oh, and what was her name?
Alice Kopinski.
Alice. Did she have a middle name?
No, she didn't.
And so what did she do between quitting school and getting married?
Well, I'm not sure what she did, but I know at one point, and I'm not sure how old she was, she went to San Francisco and went to work for a dentist or a doctor there.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a couple of children. I don't know if his wife worked too. I think she did, but I don't know what she was. You know, what occupation, whether she was a nurse or what. But Mom went there then and lived and took care of the kids and did housework in San Francisco. And I'm not sure how long she was there. I think probably a year.
And then she came back to Myrtle Point?
Uh-huh.
Oh, that must have been hard. It's always hard moving home.
Yeah.
Take it from me.
But she was a small town girl. She
liked it.
Yeah.
And where did they get married at?
There in Myrtle Point.
In a church or?
In the church office there at that little church there in Myrtle Point. Oh dear.
Was it across the street from Graham Minnie's or?
No, it was near that big school. I think it was just about a block off of that highway there in Myrtle Point as you come in.
Is it still there?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So it'd be on the right, it's the right side.
If you were coming in from like Highway 42 from Roseburg coming into Myrtle Point, it would be on the right side. It's near that restaurant. It used to be Tubby's in there.
Right.
Yeah, and it's called...
but it's a block or so off that main road?
Yeah, a block.
And they just got married in the office? No wedding ceremony per se?
No, they just... Well, I think my Aunt Florence and her husband, I think, were there. Mm-hmm. They just stood up into the office.
And then where did they go?
Well, then Daddy worked on the ranch, I guess, part of the time, and then up at Illahee, up in the mountains. But they didn't ever live up there. Daddy had worked and come home on weekends.
So did you guys live with Aunt Mary, or you lived in your own house?
We had a rental house down that street.
And were all three girls born there in Myrtle Point?
Yes.
And all in Aunt Mary's house, or?
No.
Of course, you wouldn't have been old enough to remember that.
No, I was trying to remember if Peggy was born at home or in the hospital. Probably at home, but I just don't know. And I think they were living near where Grandpa built that house, where they'd lived all those years. But I'm just not sure where Peggy...
Did your mom work when she was married? Did she have any outside job? Just took care of the family? So did she do canning or cooking, or what did she do?
She always canned a lot, and she always cooked. People didn't eat out all the time there. Right. Then they didn't have many restaurants.
Did she have a garden, or?
Yeah, Daddy always had a garden. Well, I don't remember a garden there because he wasn't, he worked away from home quite a bit. In fact, when I was born upstairs in, like I said, in Aunt Mary and Uncle Reuben's house, and Daddy was up there at Illahee, and so he wasn't home when I was born. And then Dorothy Ann was born at home there in that house near Aunt Mary's.
So how many years is there between the three girls?
There's 2 years between Peggy and me. Peggy was the oldest, and then I was about 22 months younger than she, and then Dorothy is 3 years younger than me.
Oh,
I was the middle one.
Mm-hmm. So when you were little, did you go to school there? I mean, did you live in Myrtle Point until you were where did you live?
Well, we lived there at that rental house till Mom wrote some letters. I guess Daddy was looking for a different job, so she wrote some letters for him to different places, and he got on at for the Forest Service, and he got a job clear over out of John Day. If I had some
Preparation time.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Trying to think of that name of that park, Shelton Park.
Oh, good.
It's coming back to me out of nowhere.
Your memory's still better than mine anyway, and you're 90, so.
So he got a job at Shelton Park, and he worked there, I don't know, a couple months before he sent for Mom and us kids.
To move to John Day area.
Yes. So,
Wow.
we moved up there in the park that he was working at.
They had a cabin or something?
Yeah, a little house, I remember.
You remember that?
Oh yeah, I could remember that real easy. And we took a train. I remember Mom with all three of us, and Dorothy was just a baby then, probably 6 months old. And so we took a train, probably, I'm not sure where we got off, it was John Day or what, but Daddy met us with the car. He had bought a car before he left town. Left Myrtle Point.
So she had everything with her that...
Well, the furniture, I know she had, Aunt Ruthie, she stored her bedroom set, and I don't remember if it was the Davenport and chair. That's one of the chairs
I'm sitting in.
That you're sitting in, and it had a rocker just like that.
Wow.
And then it had like a Davenport or settee or
made out of the same stuff?
Yes. And I think she had that stored at Aunt Ruthie's too. And then I remember
So the wicker chair I'm sitting in is how old?
Well, they got married in 1930, July the...
So the wicker
3rd.
chair I'm sitting in is almost 100 years old.
Uh-huh.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. I'll have to try to get a shot of that before we're done. When they made stuff to last.
Yeah.
And how about her bedroom set? Do you still have that, or just...
No, she finally just let it go. It was old and probably... Well, although we did move all that furniture to Springfield when we moved there from Cheshire.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, we were up there at that place, at that Shelton Park for, I think, just the summer. I think that fall then we moved to Cheshire, Oregon, which is 30 miles west of Eugene.
Did you move there for a job for him?
Yeah, Daddy got a job with the Forest Service there, they didn't call it that, the Forest Service. It was the 3 C's,
Mm-hmm.
government jobs. And so that's where we moved from there, because I was 3 years old and Dorothy was about 1 by then.
And did you guys own that place, or were you living in housing from that the government provided?
The government had to build a bunch of little cabins, I guess you would call them, in this farmer's field. Mr. and Mrs. Williams owned that big farm there.
I know we went there a few years ago, you and I did, when we drove.
Yeah.
Do you remember? Looked at some of the stuff.
So that's where we lived for, I guess, about a year, and then about that time they were disbanding all those.
Was that during the Depression?
Well, just getting out of the Depression, but it was still kind of in the Depression.
So what would a typical dinner be when you were there and living on that little means?
Oh, I don't remember. Mom always cooked good meals. She had a vegetable and we always had meat. Dad, we didn't raise the meat right there because we weren't on a place of our own, or renting a place.
Mm-hmm.
But
you don't remember going hungry?
Oh, never.
Never.
Because every place we lived, from there we moved on down the road at Cheshire from this, where we were living, about a mile. And Daddy and another man kind of restored this great big building. It was like a big shop or something, and they partitioned it, made 2 rooms, and we didn't have any running water or electricity.
I've been there. Except I'm an adult in the year 2000s. So you sort of had an excuse. So you had no running water, no electricity there. So what was she cooking on? Just a wood stove?
She loved cooking on that wood stove, and she was a good cook and a good baker. She loved that stove.
I remember you telling a story about your dad doing something. Was he cutting hay on the side of the road for the cows?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that. What was he doing?
Well, in the summertime, I guess the county had those big mowers, and they go along the highways and mow all that grass, so people could see the drive, and they didn't want the grass there. So after they would mow it, Daddy would. He had this little one-seater car. All 5 of us rode in.
One-seater car?
Yes.
Where'd you ride?
I got a picture of it. I guess
I'll look.
It's in one of these books. So he would hook up his trailer, and Peggy and I would go with him. And he'd go along the road with his pitchfork. He'd pile the hay up, and then he'd throw it in this big trailer he took with him, pulled behind that little car. And he had us kids get in it and stomp it down.
The grass,
the dried grass. Yeah. It was like hay, so that it wouldn't. He could get more in it at a time. It didn't take very long to fill that up, but unless we jumped on it. And so by the time we'd go home, we'd be black from head
from
to
the
toe.
road dirt. And
yes,
hay.
With filthy grass and dirt.
Did your mom want you to go so that she'd get you out of her hair, or did you want to go?
No.
Or
I guess my dad wanted us to go to stomp the hay down.
You had a purpose,
right?
What'd you do with the hay when you brought it back?
Well, he'd take it in that place we were living. There was a road, a private road. People didn't go on like regular people. Anyway, it was up past the house, up on this hill. There was an old abandoned, like a farm up there. There's an old house, 2-room house, and it seemed there must have been a little barn up there too, because he stored his hay up there.
And where were his cows at?
He just had one milk cow, and usually a beef. He always raised have a calf, and then he'd butcher the calf, and we'd have meat. Mom would can the meat because we didn't have refrigerators then. Well, shortly after we moved up there, that World War II hit, so you couldn't buy anything much. They didn't.
How did that affect things when World War II hit? I mean, what was different from what changed?
It was real hard to get things. Things were rationed. You had ration stamps, and you just could buy whatever you had. The stamps, if you ran out of stamps, you could, like sugar or coffee and shoes.
So how often did you get stamps, or how were they allocated?
I think they must have come in the mail every month.
And then you could buy. You still had to pay for it though, but that's all you could buy. Or did you get them for free?
I think we got the stamps for free, but you could only buy stuff with them so much.
But you still had to buy it. When you went to the store with your stamp, you had to buy the sugar.
Yeah, but
it was rationed.
You couldn't go to the store and say, I want 50 pounds of sugar.
Yeah, no matter how much money you had.
Right.
Wow.
That's why everything was. Honey, I need a drink of water.
Oh, you want to just take? Well, I can't stop. Let me get you I'll get you a drink.
Okay.
Actually, let's just stop and take a break, and I'll do it in parts.
Okay.
Maybe.